Get ready, Padres fans. It's time for the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network.
Tatis at third, 2 outs. Fernando takes off. He's going to steal home without a play.
Coming up, we'll have a recap of the previous Padres game, a preview of today's starting pitching matchup, and our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Mike Shildt. From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Today the Padres take on the New York Mets in the second game of a 3-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the Mets left-hander Jose Quintana and for the Padres right-hander Adam Mazur. Hi again everyone, Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch is coming up at 1:10 p.m. at Citi Field in Flushing, Queens. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, you'll hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. We'll also hear from Padres center fielder Jackson Merrill. And in just a few minutes, we'll check in with Tony Gwynn Jr. But first, let's set the table. Brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971 with 3 locations, La Mesa, Vista, and Oceanside. Padres entered today with a record of 37-36. Padres started this road trip coming off their first series sweep of the season and a 5-2 homestand. Meanwhile, the Mets are 31-37. They've won 9 of their last 13 games. 6 of those 9 wins have been by just 1 run. Before we turn our full attention to today's game, let's take a look back at what happened last night in the Big Apple.
How did the Padres fare in their last game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind. Presented by Hamul Casino. With thrilling slots and tables and all the best rewards, Hamul Casino has all the fun you're looking for. Hamul Casino. Fun above all else.
After more than an hour rain delay, we finally got underway in New York. Sean Manaea pitched 3 scoreless innings to start his night. Matt Waldron had 2 scoreless innings to begin his night, but the Mets rallied in the bottom half of the third. Waldron issued a 1-out walk to Jeff McNeil. Brandon Nimmo hit a 2-out single. There were runners on first and second for J.D. Martinez.
1-1, hit hard on a line down the right field side. That is a fair ball. Going to go to the corner and give the Mets the lead. McNeil rounding third has scored. They're waving Nimmo. There will not be a relay from Cronenworth. A 2-run double for J.D. Martinez. And the Mets strike first here in the third inning.
The score stayed 2-0 until the top of the 5th inning. That's when Jackson Merrill dug in.
1-1 pitch hit in the air to right center field, really well struck. Taylor's back into the gap. Marte's back into the gap. It is up on top of the wall and gone. A home run. Jackson Merrill with another. His 3rd home run in the last 2 games, and the Padres are on the board.
It stayed 2-1. Sean Manaea worked into the 6th inning. He would allow just that Merrill home run. Matt Waldron, meanwhile, was great last night. 7 innings, 2 runs given up, just 3 hits allowed. Adrian Morejon pitched the scoreless bottom of the 8th inning. That brought us to the 9th inning. Padres still down 2-1. Edwin Diaz, the Mets closer, entered. Jurickson Profar hit a leadoff single. Jose Azocar pinch ran. Azocar stole second with nobody out, but then Diaz bounced back to strike out Manny Machado. He got a ground out to second base from Donovan Solano. That got Azocar the tying run to third. The game was left up to Jake Cronenworth.
Runner on third, 2 outs. Pitch from Diaz, swung on and missed, strike 3. Got him with a slider down and in, and the ball game is over. Padres made a little noise in the 9th inning, but they leave the tying run 90 feet away, and the Mets take game 1 of this series by a final of 2-1.
That was that. Padres dropped the series opener in New York. It was the 3rd consecutive 1-run game played by the Padres. Padres are now 8-11 in 1-run games this year, but they are already 1 win away in 1-run games from matching their 1-run game win total all of last season. Tough one last night for the Padres. They could not get much going offensively. Just 1 run on 5 hits. The Mets had 2 runs on 4 hits. Both those runs coming courtesy of the J.D. Martinez 2-out, 2-run double in the 3rd. First pitch coming up at 1:10 in New York as the Padres try to bounce back in Game 2 of this 3-game set. As always, if you want to get involved on our pregame coverage, you can do that in a variety of ways. You can tweet at me at Sammy Lev, SammyLev. Instagram DM's open as well, Sammy Lev there too. Let me know, what is your key to today's game? I may just read your key to the game coming up a little bit later on. Let's go to Citi Field in New York.
Let's go inside the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup from Tony Gwynn Jr. in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Tony, let's start by talking about the Padres center fielder. Of course, that's Jackson Merrill. 3 home runs in his last 2 games, and it has been really nice to see some of the power come in the last few days for Jackson. Tony, as you watch Jackson Merrill, is he doing anything differently to generate this kind of power, or is it just coming the last few days in a way that he continues to just be a solid hitter all the way around?
I think it's the latter. I don't see anything different in his swing in terms of the power, and I hope that he just continues to stay the course. I mean, the power has come, I don't want to say it's by accident, but it's come in this kind of gradual way we've seen it. Does that mean he's going to just go on a power tear? I don't know, and I would say history would say no, but it is nice to see the power come. I mean, I think he's always kind of been of the mindset that will come when it comes, and we've seen it come in abundance here the last couple of weeks.
And just to stay on Jackson for a second, because it's something I've talked about the last few days, with what he continues to do at the plate, in the field, some of the power he's shown now the last few days, I feel like it really makes you wonder about what the ultimate ceiling is for this guy when you consider that he started this season at 20 years old. It's really exciting, I think.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, this is a homegrown guy, and the Padres haven't been able to say that about a lot of guys that have been on the roster. I mean, Toddy is one. We got Waldron up this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's certainly a guy. Mazur, who's going tonight, he's a guy. But it's nice to have a guy of Jackson Merrill's caliber come through your system and have some success.
You mentioned him, Adam Mazur on the mound for the Padres here today. Tale of 2 starts so far in his very early major league career. His debut against the Angels, 6 innings, 1 run given up, was able to work around some of the walks. Then Sunday against the Diamondbacks, he got hit hard, 3 innings and 8 runs given up. Tony, what are you looking for from Adam Mazur in this 3rd major league start?
The common denominator in both of those starts has been walks in command. And he was able to get through it because he got the double plays in Anaheim, and so he was able to kind of escape some of those walks. He wasn't able to do that in his last start. And, you know, at the big league level, if you can't throw the ball where you want, you're going to find yourself in trouble most of the time. And so I think that's the thing we watch for today. Can he command the baseball? Can he stay ahead or even with hitters during the at-bat? Because as we saw, when he fell behind, there really was not a lot left for him to be able to do. And not only was he not commanding, he also became predictable. And so it's incumbent upon Adam to be able to find a zone and throw more strikes in this start today.
And you and Jesse have talked about it. I've talked about it as well. He's a guy that did not walk many at all in the minor leagues over the course of a couple of seasons. So it'll be interesting to see if he starts to look more like that guy from the minors as he gets more experience in the major leagues. Tony, on the other side of this pitching matchup, veteran left-hander Jose Quintana on the mound for New York. He's a guy who throws a number of different pitches. He really utilizes the changeup well. What do you think the approach is here today against Quintana for this Padres lineup?
I mean, it doesn't change for the Pods, and I think that's I say that jokingly, but I think that's what makes this offense so good. We don't have a bunch of different looks in terms of what they're trying to do when they go up to the box. I mean, there are days where they're going to be more aggressive. There are days certainly where they're going to take their shots at different points. But the best part about this offense is that their game plan generally doesn't change. They want to keep the ball in the middle of the field. They want to not strike out. They want to, in some cases, drag the at-bat out longer. And for Quintana, who has struggled this year mightily in his starts, this is a guy that they can get on the ropes early and perhaps get in that bullpen pretty early in this ball game.
Yeah, and you mentioned just the at-bats for the Padres, and you feel like, especially as of late, I mean, there are a number of really critical at-bats you can point to, whether it was Solano a couple of times on Wednesday, Fernando with that at-bat in the 8th inning on Wednesday that led to the walk, set up the Solano home run. I thought Tony Jerkson Profar's at-bat, it got a little bit overlooked in the 9th inning last night because the Padres didn't end up scoring. But what an at-bat that was against Edwin Diaz. That does seem to be the common denominator on a lot of nights. The quality of the at-bats really top to bottom, right?
At this point of year, you could say that that's their DNA offensively. I mean, you're going to get that not just from Jerickson. You can get it from a guy like Solano. We've seen it from Toddy here as of late. You get it with Jackson Merrill. And so when you have those type of hitters sprinkled throughout your lineup, it becomes a tough lineup to continue to get through. And I think last night, even though they end up losing that game, that at-bat by Profar is really indicative of what you see in this lineup on a nightly basis. And that's why they're a tough team to just put away. Last night, the Mets were able to get it done, but that's the kind of I think effort you're going to get on a nightly basis from this offense.
Tony, as always, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you and Jesse coming up at 1 p.m. here in San Diego. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, that is Tony Gwynn Jr. joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show as we get ready for this one. Coming up in New York City, Padres facing a lefty starter once again here today. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Padres' troubles against lefties in general, but especially against left-handed starters. It continues to be a real issue for this team, and we saw it again last night. Sean Manaea, 5 solid innings. Padres just got the 1 run on the Merrill home run against Manaea yesterday, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll also hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt, and a little bit later we hear from Jackson Merrill, doing a great job as of late, 3 home runs in his last 2 games, and also playing a very, very solid center field for this Padres ball club. First pitch coming up at 1:10 in New York City. Our pregame coverage continues after this on the Padres Radio Network. Welcome back to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. Your water perfected. EcoWater SoCal. Your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 1:10 here in San Diego. Padres continuing this 3-game series against the New York Mets. A shout out to Jennifer tuning in from Spain right now. A San Diegan visiting Spain, trying to keep up with the Padres. Jennifer, we appreciate you tuning in from Europe on this Saturday here in San Diego. Caleb on the YouTube stream commenting, key to the game, early run support and clean defense wins the day. Yes, that would be a good recipe for success, no doubt about it. Let's hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
Manny Machado is back at third base for the Padres here today. First time he'll be playing third base and suffering that hip flexor strain. So Manny in the cleanup spot again, but playing the field today at third. Here was Mike Shildt earlier today inside the Padres dugout talking about Manny back at third.
Yeah, it's great to see Manny back at third. Clearly a good sign that he's feeling good and he's back at third base today. And, we always good to see the man at third.
Is that something that will have to be monitored a little bit, or is he back at third base on a permanent basis? We're just going to have to see how he comes out of it being on the legs that much.
Yeah, I think we'll see how he comes out of it. I think it'll be an evaluation, but the good news is he's there today, and we'll see what it looks like tomorrow.
We talked about this with Tony Gwynn Jr. in our opening segment, and we'll get a little bit deeper into it later in our pregame coverage. But no doubt today, a key for Adam Mazur will be better command. He's somebody who in the minor leagues always had really good command, did not walk very many people. It has not been that way in his first 2 major league starts. Here was Mike Shildt on Adam Mazur's command as he enters his third start in the bigs.
I think historically this guy's been a performer and a strike thrower, so I think that's something that you can expect when you get to third, fourth decks in stadiums. Feeling out process of being able to execute your pitches consistently, and I think that'll normalize back to more command.
One silver lining for the Padres yesterday certainly was Jackson Merrill continuing to not just hit, but hit for power, and we'll have more on Merrill's overall numbers as of late in a moment. But Merrill now 3 home runs in 2 games, had the 2 home runs, including the walk-off shot on Wednesday, a home run in yesterday's game, accounted for the only run the Padres scored yesterday. Here was Mike Shildt on Jackson Merrill, continuing to say that he's not trying to hit home runs, but the power for Merrill does continue to show up over the course of the last few days.
Victor talks about it. We want to learn to be a good contact hitter. The power will come. A lot of great hitters ended up having power, ended up being really good hitters at first, and then they learn how to drive the baseball appropriately. But yeah, I think that's just a progression of where Jackson's at in his career.
And we will hear from Jackson Merrill a little bit later on during our pregame coverage. Finally, Luis Arraez back at first base today for the Padres. Here was Mike Shildt on Arraez so far, playing first base with the Pods.
One of the things that we looked at putting Luis at first, and again, he had played it over in Miami, and he had history doing it. And it opened up an opportunity for Crony to go to second, which I think also has looked pretty favorable. If you're used to playing in the middle of the field, you're used to picking balls, using your hands. So one of the first things I noticed, even at second base, is he makes some really plays in Arizona, little short hops, and he's picking balls. And so that can transfer to first base because it's a primary part of the job, and he's done a nice job of that. It was on display last night a couple of times, and getting even more consistent with his footwork, his positioning, and just overall comfortability.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt earlier today. We'll hear more from Mike on our postgame show coming up later on this afternoon. Well, the Padres facing another lefty starter today in Jose Quintana, and facing southpaw starters has been a problem for this team really throughout the course of the year. The Padres have the 3rd lowest slugging percentage in baseball this season against left-handed starting pitching at .334. The only teams that have a worse slugging percentage against lefty starters, the Marlins and the Blue Jays. The Padres also hitting just .231 overall against lefties this year. They have an 11-14 record when facing lefty starting pitching. With that said, when they face a righty starter, well, the Padres are leading the majors in average at 276, on base percentage at 341. The Padres have a 26-22 record when they face right-handed starters. So it continues to be something to keep an eye on. The Padres did not do a whole lot against Sean Manaea yesterday, and I could go on with the names of lefty starters the Padres have not done very much against, but that is something they have to start doing better, doing more damage against lefty starters, and they have a good opportunity to do that here today with left-hander Jose Quintana on the mound for New York. First pitch coming up at 1:10 at Citi Field. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to kick things up another notch? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not on the Padres Radio Network.
We begin with the hot category. Jackson Merrill in his last 9 games batting .353 with 3 home runs, 4 doubles, and 5 RBIs. Jurickson Profar in the hot category for the Padres batting .352 in his last 16 games with 3 home runs and 13 RBIs. JD Martinez slugging .549 for the Mets in his last 13 games with 12 RBIs in that span. Martinez also in the midst of an 18-game on-base streak. He had a home run on Thursday to win it for New York. Had the 2-run double yesterday, so he's been swinging the bat well lately. Starling Marte batting .436 in his last 11 games with 8 runs scored, 9 RBIs in that span. In the not category, we zero in again on the Mets' Jeff McNeil. Last 13 games batting just .143. McNeil batting just .221 on the season. Remember, this guy hit .326 in 2022 to win the batting title. Highest average in the major leagues in 2022. But again, batting just .143 in his last 13 games. And that's a look at who's hot, who's not, as we get ready for Game 2 of this 3-game set. When we come back on our pregame coverage, we'll have a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. We'll also hear from Padres center fielder Jackson Merrill. Plus, coming up a little bit later, a deeper dive into today's pitching matchup and much, much more to get to as the Padres take on the New York Mets on what is an absolutely beautiful Saturday afternoon here in America's finest city. And I have reports that the weather is good in New York today as well. We don't want no rain. No rain today. We had the hour rain delay yesterday. Hopefully no rain in the forecast on the East Coast here today. Looks like we're good to go from everything I'm hearing. First pitch at 1:10 in New York. We have more pregame coverage after this on the Padres Radio Network. Our Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside the loft. What am I talking about? Inside our San Diego studios. I had a brief 10 seconds there. I forgot where I was. Inside the San Diego studios. We are not at Petco Park, the Padres in New York, taking on the New York Mets today, game 2 of this 3-game series. A lot to do between now and first pitch coming up at 1:10. We'll hear from Padres center fielder Jackson Merrill in just a moment. We'll also have our injury report, full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, and our keys to today's game. Let's hear a little bit from Jackson Merrill, who had a terrific couple of days, had the 2 home runs on Wednesday, had the home run yesterday. But Jackson, of course, also continues to play a very, very solid center field. Here was Jackson yesterday inside the Padres clubhouse talking about adjusting to center.
Yeah, I've tried to just relax in center field. You know, I haven't really thought too much about it or thought about it being a new position. I kind of just made it home immediately. I feel like the sooner you feel more comfortable with something, the better you're going to be at it. So, you know, I just go out there and have fun. Like I said, play hard. And usually if I catch the ball, I catch the ball. If I don't, I don't. You know, there's no going back after it happens. Just play hard, go for everything I can, and that's it.
And one of the things you may not think a whole lot about when it comes to Jackson Merrill playing center field is the fact that he has to go to all these different ballparks and play there for the very first time. And, of course, every ballpark has its own quirks, right, as far as what the outfield looks like, what the fences look like, where the corners are, all different kinds of things, whereas Jackson, who came up as a shortstop, really played shortstop his whole life, those are things you just don't have to worry about when you're playing the infield. Here was Jackson yesterday on the key to playing at different ballparks he's never played in as he takes his first tour around the majors.
I think just let the athlete and myself take over. You know, I don't really think you have to think about the walls or anything. You know, you kind of feel it with your feet and you feel it with your mind and you sense them. So just let the athlete take over and still stay relaxed out there, you know. I know this feels more straight up, but Philly has like kind of that like big wall. So, you know, maybe just know it's in the back of my head. But, you know, other than that, I just try to be smooth out there, be relaxed the whole time.
That was that was Jackson Merrill talking about playing center field. I don't know what's going on right now. It's because I was looking at something about Yu Darvish as we get ready for our injury report. But that was Jackson Merrill, in fact, talking yesterday inside the Padres clubhouse. Of course, Merrill had his early signature moment in the brown and gold on Wednesday with the walk-off home run, helping the Padres complete a series sweep of the A's. Here was Jackson yesterday reflecting on that walk-off swing.
I mean, it's really just cool to kind of see how hard I've worked and to kind of see some of it pay off. You know, I feel like I've been lining out a lot and hitting the ball really hard and not getting too many results that I want. So just staying patient and staying within myself and letting things come to me. And, you know, that feeling is surreal. You know, I don't you never know like when that could happen again. So, you know, I'm just glad that, you know, I was blessed with the opportunity for that to happen. And, you know, it just came through.
So that was Jackson Merrill talking inside the Padres clubhouse yesterday. Jackson continues to do just a terrific job, both at the plate and in center field. We talked plenty about it on Wednesday and yesterday during our post-game coverage, but the fact that Jackson Merrill never played a day in center field before spring training. He has adjusted so nicely out there. You would never know that this guy did not play center field before spring training began. And considering he started the season at 20 years old with very limited experience at the upper levels of the minor leagues, he has done far better than just hold his own. He has been really, really good. And obviously, the thing that's really stood out the last few days, the power. 2 home runs on Wednesday and 1 home run in last night's game. We'll see what's in store for Jackson Merrill coming up in Game 2 of this 3-game series in New York. All right, I kind of misspoke there. Said you heard from Yu Darvish for a moment there, but let's get to an update on Yu Darvish and some other items as well as we bring you our injury report.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit him up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
We begin on our injury report here today with just a couple of items. Obviously, Jackson Merrill returning to the lineup yesterday as he continues to deal with that patellar tendonitis, something that we learned Jackson has dealt with for a handful of years now, and he had 2 hits in yesterday's game. So it appears that Jackson is all right. He continues to deal with that after sitting out on Wednesday. Manny Machado, for the first time since suffering that hip flexor strain. He will play third base today, so that's something to keep an eye on, how Manny's moving over at third today. With Yu Darvish, this is according to Kevin Acee in the San Diego Union Tribune. Darvish threw 60 pitches in the bullpen yesterday afternoon. He sat down and resumed pitching twice to simulate 3 innings. Darvish said earlier in the afternoon that he felt the simulation would be sufficient ramp up for him to be ready to have his next step be starting a game. That return will likely come during the next homestand. He will throw a regular between starts bullpen session before then. Darvish has not pitched since May 29th. So again, he threw 60 pitches in the bullpen on Friday. That's yesterday. Sat down and then got up. He basically simulated 3 innings. So it sounds like if Darvish continues to respond well, it sounds like he will return during this upcoming homestand. So that is certainly good news. It continues to seem like Yu Darvish is moving in the right direction. And that is a look at our full injury report on this Saturday. And the biggest news there regarding Yu Darvish. Hopefully he's back pretty soon here. Certainly seems to be trending that way. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, tell you what's going on around the majors.
Let's take a trip around the Bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
Let's begin with the games going on right now. A couple of games already in progress. Cubs and the Cardinals in Chicago. Cubs leading 2-1 over the Cardinals in the 5th inning. We have the Blue Jays and the Guardians. Blue Jays 2, Guardians nothing in the 2nd. Everything else is coming up in a little bit or later on today. Angels and the Giants in San Francisco at 1:05 p.m. Patrick Sandoval on the mound for the Angels. Keaton Winn on the mound for San Francisco in that one. Marlins and the Nationals in D.C. at 1:05. Phillies and the Orioles in Baltimore at 1:05. Good series there. Reds and the Brewers in Milwaukee at 1:10. Tigers and the Astros in Houston at 1:10. Rays and the Braves in Atlanta at 1:10. Yankees and the Red Sox at Fenway Park at 4:15 after the Yankees won yesterday's game. Rangers and the Mariners in Seattle at 4:15. Royals in LA against the Dodgers at 6:10. Pirates and the Rockies at 6:10 in Colorado. Later on tonight, White Sox and the Diamondbacks in Arizona at 7:10. And we do have one postponement today. The A's and the Twins already rained out in Minnesota. They will make that up as part of a doubleheader tomorrow at Target Field. And that is a quick look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Saturday. We'll have much more on those games coming up a little bit later on during our post-game show. First pitch coming up at 1:10 in New York. We'll step aside, and when we come back, we'll have a look at our keys to the game. We'll also dive deeper into our pitching matchup between Adam Mazur and Jose Quintana, and we'll also tell you about something to watch in today's game. I think a pretty important aspect to this one coming up in New York. Much more pregame coverage coming after this on the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 1:10 in New York. We'll go out to Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. at 1 p.m. They'll have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. We are a long way from September, but both these teams, the Padres and the Mets, they are right in the mix when you look at the NL wildcard picture. Obviously, we're a long way from really having to worry about that day-to-day with more than half the season remaining. But Padres did enter today holding that second NL wildcard spot. And the Mets, despite being 6 games below 500, if you need to know how wide open the NL is this year, well, the Mets are just a few games out of a wildcard spot despite being 6 games below. So it gives you an idea of how wide open things are right now. We'll see what happens in Game 2 of this 3-game set between the Padres and the New York Mets. Let's give you our keys to the game.
How will the Padres unlock a victory in today's game? These are the keys to the game. Presented by Honor Buick GMC Hummer in National City.
Key number 1, and a lot to get to here. Get the road mojo back. The Padres went 19-10 in their first 29 road games of the season, but since then, they've lost 5 in a row. The offense has been really quiet on the road in those 5 games. The Padres have scored just 9 runs in those last 5 games, all losses on the road. This is still a team with by far the highest road batting average in the majors at .285. It's time to get back to hitting on the road. Padres had 1 run yesterday on 5 hits. That was it. Padres also have homered in 8 consecutive games. So keep the power coming and start hitting on the road again. This has been a great road team offensively and a great road team in general. 5 straight losses on the road. 1 to the Royals, 3 to the Angels, 1 to the Mets. Got to start playing better on the road again. That's key number 1. Key number 2, lay off the Jose Quintana changeup. Quintana has really struggled lately, a 7.16 ERA in his past 7 starts. That's after he had a 3.48 ERA in his first 6 starts of the season. The Padres would perhaps be well served to lay off his changeup, and here's why. Opponents have just a .236 slugging percentage on his changeup this season compared to a .529 slugging percentage on the rest of his pitches combined. Hitters are batting just .200 against his changeup. The average against all of Quintana's other pitches, here they are: .272 against the sinker, .333 against the four-seam, .316 against the curve, and .267 against the slurve. So again, the changeup has been by far and away Quintana's best pitch this season. If you're the Padres, try to lay off that changeup. Don't let Jose Quintana beat you with the change because, again, the opponent batting averages against the sinker, the four-seam, the curve, the slurve, much better than what guys are hitting against that changeup. That's key number 2. Key number 3, Jurickson Profar against the Mets. Pro had a nice game last night in his return to the lineup after dealing with that knee soreness. He had a couple of hits, including an excellent at-bat in the 9th inning to get the tying run on base. Don't look now, but Jurickson Profar is hitting .326. That's just 3 points behind Luis Ariz at .329. They're the top 2 in baseball, so Profar is getting close to the highest batting average in the major leagues. Now, the only guy standing in his way is his own teammate, Luis Ariz, but still, those 2 guys continue to be sensational, and Profar here on June 15th is hitting .326. Profar has been really good lately, for whatever reason, against the Mets. 13-game on-base streak against New York in his last 13 games against them. .326 batting average in that span, .429 on-base percentage, .500 slugging percentage in his last 46 at-bats against the Mets, with 5 extra base hits and 12 runs scored in that span. So Profar continuing to get it done against the Mets. That's key number 3. And key number 4, Adam Mazur limiting the walks. Keep in mind, Adam Mazur, who has walked 7 batters in just 9 innings so far through 2 major league starts, he walked a grand total of 26 in 147 innings in the minor leagues. This guy has been a premier control pitcher in the minor leagues. It has not been that way in the very, very early portion of his major league career. So for Adam Mazur today, you want to see the guy that's been in the minors. You want to see good command, limit the walks, get back to who you've been in the minor leagues, Adam Mazur. He should be a good command pitcher. Has not really been that way in the first couple of outings with the Padres. And that's a look at our keys to the game as the Padres get ready for Game 2 of this 3-game set coming up in New York. Now let's tell you what to watch for in today's game.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For. Presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovementsSD.com.
What to watch for in today's game. Who pitches out of the Mets bullpen? We talked about this on the postgame last night. One of the silver linings from last night's loss was that the Padres had to use one reliever and the Mets had to use 4 different relievers to get through 4 innings. Even beyond that, it's a pretty good question today. Who's going to come out of that Mets bullpen? And here's why. Edwin Diaz is thrown in 2 straight days. He just came off the IL with a shoulder issue. He'll very likely be unavailable today. So who closes for the Mets if they get to that point in this game? But it's not just Edwin Diaz. Sean Reed-Foley has pitched in consecutive days. Adam Ottavino has pitched in consecutive days. The Mets may have to go a different route in the late innings with their bullpen today. With no Diaz potentially no Reed-Foley, no Ottavino. How do the Mets piece it together in their bullpen? We talked about it yesterday, the 2 bullpens being a major part of this series, the 2 closers being a major part of this series. We didn't see Robert Suarez yesterday. Padres have won every game, all 28 games that Suarez has pitched in this season. And for the Mets, Edwin Diaz having a rocky 2024, but again, he's pitched in 2 consecutive games coming off the shoulder issue. You do wonder if there's a good chance he's unavailable here today. So that's what to watch for in this game. What do the Mets do out of their bullpen in this one? Now let's get back to our starting pitching matchup between Adam Mazur and veteran lefty Jose Quintana.
Let's take a look at who's on the bump today with our starting pitching preview on the Padres Radio Network.
On the mound for the Padres, right-hander Adam Mazur, second-round pick by the Padres in 2022 out of the University of Iowa, Big Ten Pitcher of the Year in 2022 before he got drafted. It has been a tale of 2 starts so far for Adam Mazur. Major League debut on June 4th against the Angels. He went 6 innings, 1 run given up. Did walk a handful of batters, but found a way to work through it. Then on Sunday against the Diamondbacks, didn't go nearly as well. 3 innings of work, 8 runs given up. Like we said during our keys to the game, he walked just 26 batters in 147 innings in the minor leagues. He's walked 7 batters in just 9 innings so far through 2 major league starts. The arsenal for Mazur: 4-seam fastball at 40%, slider at 36%, changeup at 13%, and a curve at 11% so far. So it really is a true 4-pitch mix for the young right-hander Adam Mazur. Meanwhile, on the mound for the New York Mets, veteran left-hander Jose Quintana. Quintana 1-5 with a 5.29 ERA in 13 starts so far this year, 66 innings and a third, 72 hits allowed. He struck out 44 and walked 23. Last start against the Phillies in London, 3 2/3 innings, 3 earned runs given up on 6 hits. The start before that against Arizona was not great, just 4 innings, 3 earned runs given up. Quintana did not face the Padres last season. Last faced the Padres as a member of the Pirates in 2022. And the arsenal for Quintana, he's a guy who throws a little bit of everything. The sinker, throws that a lot. 4-seam fastball as well. Also will mix in the changeup, curveball, and the slurve. And that's a look at our starting pitching matchup today between Jose Quintana and Adam Mazur, making his 3rd start in the major leagues. You've been listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on the Padres Radio Network. EcoWater SoCal, your water should be perfect. Find them online at EcoWaterSoCal.com. Let's set the table one more time for you as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 1:10. We go out to Jesse Agler and Tony Gwynn Jr. in just about 3 minutes, so stay tuned for that. Padres enter today with a record of 37-36. Mets enter this one a record of 31-37. Padres started this road trip coming off their first series sweep of the season. They did it in walk-off fashion against the A's on Wednesday in what was a 5-2 homestand against Arizona and Oakland. Meanwhile, the Mets, despite being 6 games below 500, don't be fooled. They're playing better. They've won 9 of their last 13 games. 6 out of those 9 wins have been by just 1 run. And like we mentioned earlier, the Padres have now played 3 consecutive 1-run games. They won those games on Tuesday and Wednesday, but lost last night's series opener in New York. When we come back, we go out to Jesse and Tony in New York City. I'll talk to you on our post-game show. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.